It's not afternoon yet. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for the invitation to present a paper, different one. We listen a paper about one particular city, the city of Thessaloniki. Now, we are going to have a paper about the Christianity and Islam in Bulgaria, between history, mythology, and reality. It's a short paper, but most of you probably will hear new things, which are really very interesting. Bulgaria has a long history of about 1,500 years, in which there have been periods of rise and fall, of power and slavery, of construction and destruction. From a religious point of view, this story is also very interesting. Bulgarians replaced paganism with Christianity from early on, although in general, Bulgaria as a kingdom officially accepted Christianity in 865. But history remembers several Bulgarian states, and not all of them accepted Christianity as their religion. I keep it here. During the 7th century, from the old Bulgarian kingdom known as Great Bulgaria, you may see above the Black Sea nowadays on the territory of Russia and Ukraine, the territory of, mainly because the Caucasus Mountain is dividing this kingdom from Georgia, Armenia, Azerbaijan nowadays. So generally on the territory of Russia and Ukraine, a Bulgarian state known as Great Bulgaria was created by a man known as Khan Kubrat. 3 different Bulgarian states appeared on the historical map. You may see from this old Great Bulgarian, the bigger yellow picture, one part of the Bulgarians went north, and they created the so-called Volga Bulgaria. Another part came here, west-south, and they created the nowadays Bulgaria. Another part remained on the place where the old Bulgaria was, and they later established together with the nomads the Khaganate of the Khazars. And different part also of Bulgaria, you may see some went to the nowadays Hungary, and from there they went to Italy, in the South Italy, and also here in the fields of Thessaloniki, part led by the Kuber story written in the books about Saint Demeter and his miracles remaining here. So 2 of the states which were established from this split of the old Bulgaria were known under the name of Bulgaria. The 3rd one is known under the name of Khazaria. The first 2, as their name indicates, were created by the Bulgarians, sons of Khan Kubrat. The 3rd is the work of the nomads and the Bulgarians of the oldest son of Kubrat, Bayan. The three Bulgarians in different periods officially accepted one of the three world monotheistic religion as their confession. The state of Asparuh, or nowadays Bulgaria, which still exists as modern Bulgaria, accepted Christianity in 865. The state of Kotrak, which remains in the history as Volga Bulgaria, the northern Bulgaria, which was bordering, by the way, with Finland in that particular time, and lasted until the 16th century, when it was finally captured by the Russians. In 922, accepted Islam as official religion. The third state, which remained in the history as the Khazar Khaganate, and which the Bulgarians were the predominant population, adopted Judaism and as its official confession in 730. That is, we see a unique phenomenon, a nation that splits into several parts, three of which organize their own states, and these states accepted one of the world's three monotheistic religions as their confession. The Bulgarians, this is the treasure, the old Bulgarian treasure found in Ukraine, belonged to the Khan Kubrat, and we may see the insignias of the power and also the symbols of Christianity, which means that the ruling class of the Bulgarians were Christians. Khan Kubrat was educated in Constantinople before returning to his land, and the whole line of the rulers were Christians, but the state, as I said, formally adopted Christianity in 9th century. So the Bulgarians' encounter with Islam began in the early Middle Ages as part of the Khazar Khaganate. This is the ruler of the first ruler of the modern Bulgarian, Bulgaria, Khan Asparuh, reigned 681-701. Volga, Bulgaria, you see how big was in the days of its greatness, and they, as we said, adopted Islam in 922 during the reign of Emir Almush. So the first encounter between the Khazar Khaganate, which was, as I said, more than 70% of the population of the Khazars were different Bulgarian tribes, and you may see on the picture which will follow also what the written sources says about the Khazars. So in the Khazar Khaganate, the Bulgarians encounter Islam for the first time, thanks to the several wars fought between the Khazaria and the Arab Caliphate in the 7th and 8th century. As I took from one source, written source about the Khazars, and Joseph the king of the Khazars, wrote in 960. You ask us also in your epistle on what people, of what family, and of what tribe are you. Know that we are descendants from the Yafet. He's describing his descendants rooted in the Bible through his son Togarmah. And I have found in the genealogical books of my ancestors that Togarmah had the 10 sons, their names. The eldest was Ur, the second Taurus, the third Tavad, the fourth was also, and you see the ninth Bulgarian, the 10th Savir. They are mythical founders of tribes that once lived in the neighborhood in the Black Sea and Caspian Sea, and I'm descendant of the Khazar, the seventh son of all these brothers. As part of the present-day Bulgaria, map of the modern Bulgaria, you see Romania, Greece, Turkey, North Macedonia, Serbia, here in the Balkans. The Bulgarians encountered Islam for the first time in 717, when the capital of the Eastern Roman Empire, Constantinople, was besieged by the Arabs of Maslama, the brother of Caliph Suleiman, and it was only a matter of time before they conquered it. Then the Bulgarian Count Tervelus came to the rescue of the city, and with his army put more than 100,000 Arab troops in flight. 15 years later, Karl Martel, or Shah Martel, would stop the Arab invasion from the west at Poitiers. The two rulers were declared by the church to be the saviors of Europe. The Bulgarian Count Tervel was declared a saint of the church and is known as the Holy King Tribelius or Theoctist, because he is supposed to have become a monk at the end of his days. Volga Bulgaria, as we already mentioned, accepted Islam and as its official religion in the beginning of the 10th century. Their first encounter with Islam were followed by sporadic one over the centuries, with their intensity increasing in the 13th and especially from the beginning of the 14th century. By the middle of the 15th century, the entire Balkans were incorporated into the Ottoman Empire, and the Christians became subject of the Ottoman Sultan. For nearly 500 years, Bulgarians have been part of this empire, which officially profess Sunni Islam, but in which Christians have always been the majority. These 500 years, during which Islam prevailed, brought great changes in the lives of the Bulgarians, in their culture, moral values, and belief system. The ruling class was that which professed Islam, something that in the early years of the conquest led to a considerable number of Christians voluntarily accepting Islam in order to preserve their wealth and position in the society. Over the centuries, periods of voluntary and forced acceptance of Islam alternate in number of religions of the country. For example, in the Rhodope Mountains, which became a favorite hunting ground for the sultans, a part of the population was forcibly converted to Islam, because there was a particular understanding or rule that while hunting, the Sultan should be surrounded only by Muslims. So they forced the population to convert into Islam. And of course, many people, as I said, to preserve their wealth, to preserve their position in the society, easily accepted Islam, and they were, of course, granted by the Muslims with the top positions in the society, or simply they remain on their places after the invasion of the Turks. This is the siege of Constantinople in August, as I mentioned, 717, 15th of August, 718. It was a huge Arab army of more than 200,000 people under the commandment of Maslama surrounding the city. They had also a big fleet, and it was really, according to the historians, a matter of time, city to be captured. But thanks God, it happened later. This is the Bulgarian Count Tervillus, who was, as I said, became a monk, and he was canonized by the church as Saint Theoctis or Trebellius. And also Karl Martel or Shah Martel, another hero of Europe, who stopped the Muslims in nowadays France, in Poitiers. The battle, 13th century, when the Ottoman Turks started their invasion of the Byzantine Empire, of the European provinces of the Byzantine Empire, and also of the rest of the states in the Balkans. And you may see a map of the Byzantine Empire, different periods, really one of the greatest empires the world ever know. If I remember quite well, only the British Empire was a bigger one in the history compared to what the Muslims of the Turkish people organized in the 15th, 16th, 17th century. And the period of about which I'm speaking, these relations between Christians and Muslims in one Bulgarian city, I think it's Filipopoli or Plovdiv, this painting from there. There were periods of peaceful coexistence between the Christian and Muslims, and of course, there were really periods of blood, of killing, of rapes, and so on by the Muslims. So all this very long 500 years period left in the memory not only of the Bulgarians, but it's also our Romanian and Greek brothers, a very traumatic, as I may say, memories. This is the end of the Ottoman Empire, the decline of the Ottoman Empire, 18th and 19th century, when the empire became very weak, and to keep its integrity, they really start oppressing, especially the Christian population, and really it was time of blood, of killing, of martyrs, of course. because the pressure from the weak state was very, very harsh, very, very strong. The liberation of Bulgaria in the 19th century from the Ottoman rule brought with it colorful religious picture, a predominantly Christian population, but also a large Muslim minority in Bulgaria. And we see a picture after the liberation. Muslims, Christians, they were really in the beginning living together without conflict. For the first few decades, they coexisted peacefully and without problems, regardless of the heavy Ottoman legacy. However, the communist coup in Bulgaria on September 9th, 1944, fundamentally changed the things. The church, which had saved the Bulgarians from assimilation into the vast empire, became the main ideological enemy of the new atheist power, and unprecedented persecution began against it, leading to the violent death of hundreds of clergymen, monks, sisters, and so on. Christian churches were closed and destroyed under the slogan of "One people, one nation." A fierce campaign against Muslims also began. History was interpreted in favor of the new ideology. All Muslims were declared Bulgarians, and who, according to the communist propaganda, at various times were forced to change their fate. Various campaigns and events were being carried out for the Bulgarization of all Muslims in Bulgaria, and started deportation, administrative sanction, forcible change of names, economic coercion, immigration campaigns, etc., etc. In January 1948, the displacement of the Muslim minority living along the southern state border of Bulgaria near Turkey and Greece began. The social modernization launched by the regime was also partly directed against the influence of Islam. In 1953, new passports with photographs began to be issued, causing widespread discontent among Muslims due to the belief that taking personal photographs violated the Quranic prohibition of human images. Particularly indignant were they about the photographing of women with their face uncovered. In 1958, the implementation of the long-planned cultural revolution began. The methods of this revolution were forcible removal of traditional Islamic clothing, burqa, peredze, and so on and so on. At the end of 1959, the Ministry of Public Health issued a special document in which he attacks also the traditional circumcision of boys, something which is known as sunnet. Unable to stop it suddenly, the authorities forced the medicalization of this manipulation, and it should be done by professional doctors, and the boys should be hospitalized. Thus, the religious semantic were removed, and the shunts are subject to criminal persecution for inflicting serious or moderate bodily harms. Parallel to this, since the first years after 1944, a purposeful emigration or expelling campaigns in the direction of Turkey had been going on. On July 17, 1970, the Bulgarian Communist Party took a decision for the national awareness of the Bulgarians of the Muslim faith in order to stop the Turkization of part of the population. Process of changing Muslim names to Christian ones began. The campaign began first in the region of city of Smolin and later spread to the other parts of Rhodope Mountain. In the winter of 1984, another decision was taken to change all Muslim names in Bulgarian to Christian ones. This led to numerous protests, murders, and even there were few terrorist acts in the country. The Muslims blew up a train with passengers and so on as a reaction against this policy. As a result of this campaign, which lasted from 1984 until 1989, over 350,000 Muslims left Bulgaria and settled in Turkey. But this, thanks God, instantly finished. The end was put by the fall of the communist regime in Bulgaria, November the 10th, 1989. Against the background of the ongoing conflicts in the Balkans between Christian and Muslims, the case of former Yugoslavia, Serbia, Kosovo, Northern Macedonia, etc. Thanks God, today Bulgaria, despite of this really very difficult past for the Muslims, the last 15 years during the communist period, Bulgaria nowadays is a model of peaceful and conflict-free existence of the two religions. The rights of the Muslims are guaranteed by the constitution, and the nearly 10% of the population of Bulgaria which are Muslim has one of the most influential political forces in the Bulgarian parliament, winning about each year, every election, 9-10% of the vote in the election since 1989. And you may see these pictures from the so-called Great Escape, Great Vacation, or Great, I don't know, travel, when the state forcibly asked the Muslims to leave the country, and the Turkey was really put under pressure because, as I said, more than 350,000 Muslims were forced to leave the country. And you may see this is a tent in Turkey because was impossible for the Turkish government to secure initially places for these people to stay. So they used to live in tents, and people who has cars may use their car to bring the luggage, but some of the people were, as this man, pulling this horse car for instead of the last one. Yeah, thank you very much for your attention. If you have any questions, or whatever, and if I'm able to give an answer. That's good. No.
I would, first of all, thank you for the presentation. I was interested about the names that were Christianized after the fall of the communist regime. Were they changed back into Muslim ones, or did they remain so?
Sorry. Yes, most of the Muslims, because the name is also part of our identity. So when they were free to bring back their old names, they did. But most of the people actually who left the country, they refused to adopt the new names, and that's why they left the country. There were people who changed their names and they were free to remain in the country, but if they refused to do it, they had to leave. So yeah, most of the Muslim, but the problem is there's people who left the country. Most of them are still living in Turkey. For example, the region, there were a few big Turkish cities where it's known that most of the population are refugees from Bulgaria.
I also have a question. After this big escape, was there any change of the mosques? I mean, did they change all the mosques to the churches, or?
No, because the communists, they were interested of destroying churches and mosques, not converting. I mean, yeah, we don't have even single case of conversion of mosque into a church during the communist period. In the period after the liberation of Bulgaria from the Ottoman yoke, then there were many cases, but in fact, most of the mosques which were converted into churches, they initially were churches converted into mosques. So when we were again liberated, we somehow, most of the mosques which we knew that they were churches, and there were only one case in the city of Sofia, a building which was initially built as a mosque, now is one of the most beautiful churches in the city. But this is an exception, not a rule. Yeah, the mosques were emptied. Some of these mosques, which were actually not of cultural interest, were left to be destroyed by the weather, but no destruction, forcible destruction of mosques or whatever. No. Nowadays, I mean, there is a big problem in the country because there are a very, very strong, very powerful foundation from Saudi Arabia, from the Middle East, who are financing the building of mosques. And you maybe, if you visit the country, especially the Muslim regions, you will see small villages with, let's say, 100, 150 people population. They have new mosques which may go in 1,000 people. Huge mosque in the small villages, but this is because of this financial help which is coming from the Middle East.
What is the relationship between Muslims and Orthodox?
We have regular meetings, let's say, for example, when the new government is elected, when the new parliament is elected, always the Bulgarian patriarch, the patriarch of the Orthodox Church, and the mufti, the representative of the Muslims in that place, regular visits on different occasions. The mufti is visiting the patriarch, or the patriarch is normally the patriarch is accepting them. He's not quite often visiting the Muslims, but there are good relations between the Orthodox Church and the Muslims, and the Islam in the Balkans is very different from the Islam, for example, what we have in the Middle East, even from what Erdogan nowadays is trying to do with Turkey. It was a very secular Islam. And you may see, for example, Friday Day is a very how to say, indication about the practicing of the faith of the Muslims. Only in old, very strong Muslim communities you may see people in the mosque. And also there is an interesting process running through the society. The fervent Muslims nowadays are not the remains of the Turkish minority, but the gypsies. Because of this foundation from the Middle East, which somehow not very well controlled by the state, money from different institutions are coming, and the gypsies are not going to the mosque because they really believe very much, but because it's paid for visiting mosques and wearing hijab and so on. I think still no. Yeah.
How big is the Muslim and Jewish community in Bulgaria today?
As I said, the Muslims are about 10% of the population. So let's say in Bulgaria now is about 7.5 million. So we have about nearly 1 million. 1 million, but the problem is, let's say Turks are remaining about 300, 400,000 people. The rest, the gypsies, it's a very interesting phenomenon. Gypsies are adopting the faith of the people because the gypsies normally live in the how to say it, they can't live alone. They have to live with somebody else. And if the city they live, the majority of the people are confessing Christianity, they're becoming Christians. If they live or surrounding the Muslim village or the Muslim city, they're becoming Muslims. So 1 million, from which, let's say, 300 or 400,000 Turks with the Turkish origin, and the rest are gypsies, which are confessing Islam.
And when they convert, they keep also their Christian name. So you can have Giorgio, Georgi, Hassan, whatever. Yes.
And how many Jewish people, Judaists?
The Jewish minority, I can't tell you the exact number, but between 30 and 50,000 people, because the last years also, this mass movement into Israel after the collapse of communism, many Bulgarians also, many Bulgarian Jews also left the country and went to Israel. But they're even a small population. They're very influential in Bulgaria. One of the leading names in the area of culture, the politicians and so on, are with the Jewish origin.
Can I ask something about the religion education? The Muslims have a sort of course in the public schools or only Guru Kursum, Quran Kursum?
Right. The last years, what the aim of the church, and this also reflects the Muslims, the state finally decided to introduce a religious education in the secondary and the primary schools, and the subject is it's optional. I mean, the parents and the children are deciding to take it or not, and it also depends if the area is mainly Muslim, they learn, they have in a school education which is religious education with the focus on Islam. In the Christian areas, the focus is on Christianity, but they're how to say, they're non-doctrinal. It's not focused on Orthodox Christianity or, let's say, on a Catholic Christianity. It's focused on Christianity and some information about the major religions, and also the same is about Islam. But in the same time as we have a Sunday schools and so on in the church, they organize like that in the mosques.
So there is also an Islamic institute which is based in Sofia. It is a higher educational establishment, and it aim is to prepare students to become imams. So I'm not sure about the numbers of the people who study there, but it's what I know is that most of the support comes from Turkey because the Bulgarian state does not provide the financial support, I think. Yeah.
It's not exactly like that, because finally the government understood that if they're not supporting the local Muslim institute, the financial support is coming from abroad, mainly from Turkey and from the Middle East. And also through the years, many Muslims went to study in Saudi Arabia, in Turkey, and in other Muslim countries. And when they're returning home, they're bringing different Islam, very radical Islam. So through the years, they start understanding, so it's better to support the local preparation of Muslim leaders instead of preparing like that in abroad.
Yes, but regarding the contents of this religion education, is there any state control of the state?
Yes, there is, because finally the government realized that they somehow miss a long period in which preachers of the radical Islam, especially in the area, the border area with Turkey and also with Greece in Rhodope Mountain, there were many emissaries coming from Saudi Arabia, from the Qatar, from other Muslim countries, yeah. And they were coming also with the huge financial support from their countries, with the literature, which is not checked by the government authorities. And it's really dangerous. There were several processes, persecutions against Muslims, Muslim leaders who were preaching radical Islam. Probably in Greece here, you have heard about this process in Pazardzhik. There were gypsies who were paid to preach this radical Islam. Also, it's funny, but that's the practice. They pay each month to a family a quite good amount of money to wear burqa, this which is normally for Saudi Arabia, this coat of dressing. Now, and it was something which before we never seen in Bulgaria. Now, going to area of Pazardzhik or other Muslim places, especially in the gypsy communities, you may see wearing black burqas from them.
To ask something, who appoints imams?
The imams appointed, there is a council, a Muslim council in the country, and is elected by the community, but should be how to say, should be approved by the local authorities, state authorities. There is still two muftis, but one which is
Legal?
legal and one illegal. There is also
Balkans are have similar.
yes.
Thank you very much for your panorama, this view. Well, it's this last questions and answers are a sort of introduction to the segment.
Okay. Thank you very much, Professor, for your presentation. Thank you, Panagiotis. I mean, after this presentation, it is confirmed that in order to understand the actual situation here in our area, we need to start talking from the 17th, 18th century and to pass all these steps of the development of the Ottoman Empire until now that we don't have the Ottoman Empire, but we have a big country with international interesting on let's say controlling, if you want, the Muslim the Muslim and the education of Muslims in Europe. This is not something that it is limited in just an educational or an academic level, but it has a very strong political aspect. Professor said before that it was the role of Arabic countries like Saudi Arabia and his foreign policy, not only in the Balkans, but also in the Central Asia, for instance. Thousands of dollars going there in order to establish new mosques, new madrasah, and this is actually is a big issue, especially for the European Union, and it is something that different European countries and different universities are involved in order to have religious education on Islam and programs, undergraduate or postgraduate programs on Islam with following the international academic standard. So this is a struggle and this is a task in all over Europe. And part of the struggle is also our faculty and particularly our school, the School of Theology. So as I told you before, yesterday, we are the only school in Greece that has 2 undergraduate programs, and one of them is dedicated to the Islamic studies, established in April 2016. And 2 years ago, we had our first graduates. So, practically speaking, Islamic studies, teaching Islamic studies, as I told you, is not limited, is not merely an academic issue. It has also some social, political, and national, if you want, dimension. Professor said before about the influence of the Turkish foreign policy to Bulgaria, about the influence of Saudi Arabia. And this practically means that young Bulgarian citizens or young Muslims, they're citizens of Bulgaria. No, they're Bulgarian citizens, I think, no? The Bulgarian citizens. As Greek citizens who cannot find a faculty school to study in an academic level in order to become theologians of Islam. So they are forced by the circumstances and from other reasons to go to study to other countries, countries that they are ready financially, but also politically to receive them, to support them generously for many, many years, and then to return to their hometowns, home countries, home villages, to practice as imams or as muftis, Islam there. So it's not a simple thing. The same we have in Germany. We had in Germany, and it's true, and for the people who study these things and who follow these developments, it is true that the German government, German state, faces very, very seriously the fact that Muslim minorities in Germany are controlled by non-German, let's say, by the non-German way of life, or by we have in this case an artificial, or a guided, if you want, a problem of social of the integration. It's not maybe the right term for the sociologist, integration, but in any case, we have a problem of social cohesion. We have a problem of social peace many times. Denmark, for instance, is an example. No, so one of the solutions, let's say, is to have schools and in different levels, and particularly in academic level, that teach in a decent way and following, as I told you, the academic standards, Islam. So this is our case. And it's not an easy task. It's we're struggling with this issue more than 10 years. And I can tell you that we are still not, how can I say, our heart and our soul are not calm, because there are always struggles, there are always problems, not only technical and academic, and but also problems with the Greek society. Because as a professor also said, and I tried to explain, that we're societies that the religion is very strong, the role of the religion is very strong, and especially when the economical crisis hits, knocks our doors, we have a turn to the religion. And in this case, when we're talking about religion, we're talking about the Greek Orthodox faith, no? The Orthodox faith, and in our case, the Greek Orthodox Church. So in these cases, we have many times strong reactions of everything that is new, and especially when the new is something that has to do with another religion. So imagine the Faculty of Theology of Thessaloniki has the reaction of the people, of some people, thank God, when we started the idea and to communicate, we are about to start this new undergraduate program. The reaction of fundamentalist circles in this city, but also in all over Greece. And you know, this is not a theoretical thing, because it became also a very personal thing. Even you go to house of friends and they know that you are a part of the faculty and you are one of the supporters of the Islamic studies, you had a personal attack. As a trader, I don't know, of the Holy Orthodox tradition, or do we register him also? Yes. Okay. Or the national, let's say, identity. So it's a struggle, but our faculty and my colleagues decided to take the risk. So from 2016, we have this undergraduate program of on Islamic studies. And as I told you, also, yes, tell me the time. And it is also very compatible. The new establishment of this program is compatible also with our general profile that has to do with the dialogue between the Orthodox churches, between Christian denominations and religions. But this dialogue is not in an abstract or general way, but it passes through the study of our tradition, that is our Orthodox tradition, the Orthodox theology, religion in general and culture, through always the sources, that is the biblical studies, the languages of the Bible, the interpretation, liturgics, history, etc. Okay. So we're trying to transmit to our students to cultivate the theological science in a modern way, the development of inter-Orthodox and inter-religious networks of collaboration, the ecumenical theology in other worlds, and of course, in this framework, we have the study of Islam and their cultures. So as far as concerned, the undergraduate program on Islamic studies has as an object the scientific study of Islam, and particularly the tradition of the texts as this tradition is developed in the framework of the historical and cultural parameters. Offers specialization in the different expression of Islam, that is religion, culture, politics, society, and history, applying all the necessary methodological tools and the relevant scientific approaches, as this is interpretation, translation, critical analysis of the text, theology, history, religious studies, sociology, and law. the studies of Islam gives the possibility of educate young people in areas that include the the Islamic culture, the Quran, the Islamic traditions, the religious and political dimension of Islam in the history, the Islamic legal systems, and of course, we see them, we analyze them through in comparison or in relation with the framework of the European legal culture and all the modern theories of relevant to human rights, religious freedom, and of course, taking in consideration the long life relationships of Islam with the Oriental Christianity. So the history brought us here together, and it was Islam in our area was more than four centuries. You notice that also in the city. In this city, we have also Muslim monuments, but it's not only the monuments. It's this interaction of the people and the creation of mentalities that many times are let's say are in an interaction. They're having this relation. A very important part of the studies, I will make a reference to what we teach here later, is the languages. So we cannot have Islamic studies if we don't teach Arabic. And this is something that is absolutely necessary for the future imams, that we will be, we have a degree for our faculty, and it's very important for their liturgical life when they go back to their mosques and to their schools. So we follow, in order to build this program, we followed all the standards of the sectoral qualification framework for humanities and art, the all EQF level description of theology and religious studies, and of course the Greek legislation. The Greek legislation that changed dramatically the last year, because it is a more let's say holistic approach of the Muslim minority, not only for the level of education, but also of religious autonomy and the appointment of our three muftis and the imams in the mosques, and the teachers of the religious of Islam in madrasas and in the schools of the minority, the public schools of the minority. So this is a big effort, struggle and effort. But at the same time, it is difficult because there are reactions, different kind of reactions. Professor from Bulgaria, I forgot your name. Karavolchev, in a very gentle way, in a very diplomatic way, tried to present. I think you have more serious problem in your country, more complicated problems in your country, and but we still, as I told you before, have these problems. The idea, I repeat, is to avoid to give the opportunity, the possibility of the Muslim women and men of the minority, but also students who want to study the Islam independently of their religion. No, we have Christian also students in the course. No, in order to meet Islam and to know the richness of this religion and the tradition that it is in a way also common tradition. I mean, we as nation, as Greek nation, as Greeks, we were together, we lived together for many centuries. So this academic knowledge, it is also something is very important for understanding the minority, for protecting the minority. The Greek constitution is one of the most liberal European constitutions, and the protection of the minorities is guaranteed. And to make more steps, not one step ahead, forward for the minority. So I will just present you briefly the program. It's 8 semesters. That is 240 CTS according to the standards of Erasmus of CTS system. Islamic history and theology, Quran and interpretation, tafsir, introduction to the Abrahamistic religions and societies in Middle East, Arabic, Islamic history in nowadays, Sunnah, Muslim tradition, still Arabic. We have 2 years of Arabic languages, and somebody can also have another year as an optional. So that is tafsir, Sunnah, and then we have a special part for pedagogics, for education. It is an optional. Student cannot take some courses that are relevant to the education, but mainly all the students, especially Muslim students, take these courses in order to have the possibility to teach to the schools of the minority. Of course, there's Hadith, the study of Hadith and the Islamic law, Sharia, in different levels. But I think one important thing is that we teach also Christian theology and or Christian law. So I can assure you that it was something that also surprised me, the will of the Muslim students to learn about Christianity. And I was astonished because I thought that it was obvious for them what is a bishop, what is the role of the bishop, what is the deacon, okay. But I discovered that it was not clear. I'm not talking about the difference of the patriarchate with the autonomous church, or the difference of the Bulgarian or Romanian church with the Church of Greece and all these things. What is an archbishop, etc. But I'm talking about from simple just issues that have to do with their ordinary life. So I think this is this program is not unilateral; it's bilateral or multilateral, if you want. There are different aspects that are very useful, and I think this program is the only one in an academic level in our area, the Balkan area, I understand that there's not a program, a university program in Bulgaria, no? There is, but not like that. It's not, there is controlled by for Arabic language. Okay. Yes. Okay. So, no. No. So this program is also useful for the new Islam. The new Islam is the thousands of immigrants that arrived to our country the last years. There are more than 500,000. The minority is around 120,000. Divided also in three, mainly in Thrace, Athens, and Thessaloniki, and divided in the base of their national background. We have also Gypsies, we have Slavs, converted Pomaks, and people that have a Turkish origin. And of course, all of them are Greek citizens. So it will be also an opportunity for New Islam, for all these people that are coming from North Africa or Middle East or Central Africa, Central Asia, that they want to have, they can have good studies on Islam and have their own imams and teachers and muftis in the future. And in this effort, we also included some of our muftis who have also the necessary qualification, that is PhD, and they come here and they support the whole idea. And as a head of the department, of the school, I can see that there's an harmonious collaboration between Christian professors and Muslim professors, with respect and dignity. So I think that the whole plan is a win-win. That is for many reasons, not only for the respect of human rights. That's, of course, it's fundamental, and unfortunately is not obvious that we cannot take it for granted. I mean, we need to struggle and to fight always about human rights, but also for academic reason, for the society, I mean, for avoiding exclusion. Our project also has to do with the inclusion, no? So exclusion is not a choice in this globalized world. So this is a little bit an overview of what we're doing here. We have many women also, many, okay, relatively many, because we have students, but not so many as on the program of theology. But also there are some Muslims, young women, and of course men who are among our graduates, and who are trying to how can I say, to call them and to show them openly what we're doing here, and in order to be their choice to come, not our, let's say, only our calling. So thank you for your attention. If you want to ask me. I try to do it with, as I feel it, more than to write a paper. And I had a very good PowerPoint on all the legal system in Greece with laws, etc. But I think that is not the case I can explain you if you want the legal system, but if we're talking about preparing material, we need to understand how each society, how each country or feels the need. And of course, you know that Greece and Bulgaria and I mean, mainly Greece, I mean, we have a long coast, and every day we have waves of desperate people. And here we will need to talk also understand that the instrumentalization of the religion is very strong in our region. So it's not the same in, I don't know, in Luxembourg or in Denmark. Of course, there are other problems. Here, it's the first line. It's complicated. So if you have any questions, I'm in your disposition.
Well, thank you very much, Nikos. You've been very clear, or our participants are very familiar to all this problematic. So now we will give the word to Nikos Tsirevelos. He's a PhD of theology, and he's a militant teacher of religion in the public school, in the secondary level. He's a teacher of religion, and recently became a member of the teaching staff of our department, our school, and he will offer us some new and good practices about teaching religion regarding the otherness, the religious otherness. Nikos, please.
Thank you, Professor. Dear colleagues, the coexistence of people of different religious faiths in the same region is not a new phenomenon. In history, we came across many examples of peaceful cohabitation or religious tolerance. However, violence and fanaticism threaten the peaceful coexistence of people of different religious faith. This dangerous phenomena can be dealt through education. Modern religious education ought to create the circumstances that help students discover that fanaticism is a distortion of the religious tradition and is contrary to proper religious faith itself. In this context, in 2020, Educate, a European multicultural program, was implemented. Its main purpose is to cultivate resistance against fanaticism and radicalization, intolerance, and politico-religious polarization of students. This pursuit is materialized in the subject of religion education in schools. The program includes 2 modules. In the shallow module, the goal is to introduce students to the basic elements of a religion. In the second module, a deeper learning approach is adopted. Students tackle with 4 questions referring to violence in religious texts, the way diversity is treated in each religion, the holy war, and violence against the natural environment. The students investigate each subject based on their own faith and get familiar with the approaches of the other religions like Islam and Judaism. The educational material concerning the Orthodox tradition was prepared by the Department of Theology for the Shalom module and the Volus Academy for Theological Studies for the Deep module. During the course of this proposal, the working method of the pedagogical team of the Volus Academy will be presented. The team consists of Dr. Pantelis Karelaidzidis, who is the director of Volus Academy, and the other members are the teachers of religious education, Apóstolos Barlos, Βάσο Γόγου, Κωστής Δυριανάκης, Christos Φραδέλος, and me. My presentation is divided in two parts, where in each part, the theological and the pedagogical approach are described. The theological approach was based on texts of the Orthodox tradition and the contemporary theological research. The chosen material was convened in a such way so as to be understandable by students and to definitely answer their questions concerning issues of violence and diversity in the Orthodox Church. One of the main questions the students pose is why God acts violently, as seen in many narratives of the Old Testament. In these narratives, God seems to save his chosen people, Israel, and destroy his enemies. Is the God of Christians a God of violence and not a God of love after all? The approach to these questions was made based on the contemporary biblical research. Therefore, it was emphasized that the books of the Old Testament are theological and not historical books. These books were written centuries after the events they describe. The authors try to give answers to questions that preoccupy their contemporaries. For example, as all we know, in the narrative about freeing Israel from the Egyptians and the crossing of the Red Sea, God destroys the Egyptians and drowns them in the Red Sea. This narrative refers to events that took place around the 13th century BC. However, they were recorded in the 5th century. Therefore, the goal was to narrate the crossing of the Red Sea, which gave purpose to the life of the Israelites who lived in a polytheistic and pagan environment during the 5th century. But one question arises here. A question that many students pose persistently due to the contemporary immigration and refugee situation. How do Christians view people of other religions and other nationalities? Jesus Christ inaugurated a new era and embraced all men and women, regardless of their religious faith, their nationality, and their social class. The parable of the Good Samaritan describes that the man closer to us can be any man or woman, regardless of how different he or she may be from us. Our neighbor is the one who practices love in action, and in love there are no limits. This is why Basil the Great emphasized that God wants you to support the needy and not to discriminate between people. He doesn't not want you to give to the person of your kin and neglect the stranger. All people are of the same kin. All of them are brothers and sisters. All of them are children of one Father. The source of this love is the Trinity. God is love, and the one who abides in love abides in God. The Holy Trinity consists of a community of different persons united in love, a divine company. Undoubtedly, all this sounds beautiful. However, in everyday life, we are often informed that violence is practiced in the name of God and even of God of love. And possibly the most cruel form of violence may be the Holy War. What is the standpoint of the Orthodox Church on these issues? The pedagogical Orthodox team underlines that in the Orthodox theology, the behavior of people is a matter of a free will. Man is free to cooperate with God, to become co-creator and embrace all men. But also he is free, even if he declares that he believes in God of love, to commit a crime in the name of God. The second case expresses the fanatics who have turned faith into ideology. The fanatics usually link religious faith with ethnic origins and constantly look everywhere for enemies. Also, they believe that religious pluralism threatens genuine religious faith. The supporters of these opinions, in an effort to defend the sacred, do not hesitate to justify even violence. But the fanatics forget the calling of Christ to his disciples through the ages. Nikos Matsoukas observes, the call that Christ addresses to us is personal and is not addressed to some collective of nation, race, people, and so on. The only collective that is recognized is the church, the new people of God, which, however, a spiritual race. This new people is formed, therefore, not on the basis of race, nation, language, or culture, but on the basis of admission into the body of Christ, offering universality and Catholicity. For the real faithful, the only holy war that exists is the eternal war against the personal passions and not against the sinners or people of other faith. Condemning violence in the Orthodox sphere includes violence against the natural environment. The sacredness of nature is a basic element of the Christian theology, anthropology, and cosmology. We must not forget that nature is a stranger for us that days. Already from the book of Genesis, it is stated that man is the protector of nature. Today, the Orthodox Church emphasizes that the destruction of the environment is a result of a certain choice of the way of economic, technological, and social development, which so condemned both for the human face and for nature. The Christian response to the problem demands repentance for the abuses, an ascetic frame of mind as a therapy to overconsumption. The example of the sense is always relevant and useful and teaches that the respect we ought to show towards nature includes and reflects the way we interact with our fellow men. These theological views that were briefly developed comprise the teaching material in our program. From these theological views were produced the expected learning results, or teaching aims, we can say, by the team of Volos Academy for each topic. Furthermore, modern methods and teaching techniques like the routines of artful thinking or educational drama were chosen to allow students to effectively process the teaching material. In this way, students cultivate their critical ability and evaluate new knowledge according to their own representations. This pedagogical approach is based on the theory of Dewey, learning by doing. So students feel they participate in a game. In this game, they have the ability to reconcile the racist and intolerant perceptions about the religiously different persons. In this procedure, the exploitation of works of art from the Orthodox tradition, but also from the secular art, used by the team as a technical material. Art helps the more direct transmission and receiving of the message, and its gradual and deep interpretation, as Professor Kukura said. In matters referring to religious fanaticism and violence, art offers the material for students to interact with diversity. This picture, the next picture, is from educational drama, and it comes from the parable of I try to remember in English now. Prodigal son. Prodigal son. When the little son returns to father, you can see the students try to perform this scene from the Bible. It's the last picture. Okay. To make all this comprehensible, the basic stages of the learning path will be briefly described. In the beginning of each lesson, the students watch an animation video with a story relevant with the topic they will be taught. The key question posed by the video is, what is the importance of the specific issue for me personally? We can watch this video, it's only 5 minutes. We have time, 5 minutes. This video was produced by the pedagogical team. This is a part of the video that we performed. The goal is to make the diagnostic evaluation of the views of students. For example, if they have racist perceptions for people of different religion. Then students link the video with a theological reflection of each topic with the help of specific teaching material. The main questions of this section are, in which way do you believe these images, sounds, texts relate to the topic? What are, in your opinion, the characteristics of this topic? In the topic, violence in sacred texts, the students study the crossing of the Red Sea by the Israelites and the destruction of the Egyptians. Here, we ask from the students to characterize God based on the text. to find in the text these phrases that shows that the wrath of God, that shows the wrath of God against the Egyptians, as well as to note phrases in the text that show the reason why God acts violently. In this way, the students enter the theological reflection. Another example comes, you can go to the next picture, comes from the parable of the Good Samaritan that we work with students with the educational drama and the hot sitting. I don't know if you know this technique. One student takes the role of the robed Jewish, and he comes, it doesn't matter if girl or a boy, and he returns to his village. All the class, all the other students are the villagers, and they ask him, how feels after the help that take from Samaritan, the big enemy, the sacrilegious, person. And we have a lot of techniques of educational drama. We use this picture from Romanian painter Elena Morariu, and we work with educational drama and the technique teacher or students in role, which is a story. The painter of the below painting is invited to our class. It's a game role. What questions would you ask her about this artwork? Teacher or 2 or 3 students take on the role of the painter and answer. This is a role-playing game. We can continue. In the next stage, the theological topic is utter investigation. In this stage, the axis of the question is, what issues regarding the topic are raised in the context under investigation? What is your view? And I refer to the students. In the topic encounters with the other, the students process the parable of the Good Samaritan with creative questions, while for its better understanding, works of art are used from the Orthodox iconography and from educational drama, as I said. In the final stage of process, there are always tasks of application and reflection. The main goal of these tasks is to link each topic with the life of the students and to do the final evaluation. The dominant question here is, what must be our personal responsibility? In the topic encounter with the environment, the students are asked to create a digital poster where they will convey the ecological message of the lesson. You can see the posters of the children. Dear colleagues, the work of the Orthodox pedagogical team for the program Educate has sought to highlight, based on the Orthodox theological conditions, that the other, the stranger, the one of different religion and national origin, is our brother and sister. In his and her face, we see Christ himself. The whole theological project is summarized in the following words of Ignatius, Metropolitan of Dimitrias. We are really Christians only insofar as we stay faithful to the cosmic commandment of love towards all people, regardless of race, gender, religion, social class, or origin. This goal was served through teaching techniques that encourage the active participation of students, cultivate their critical abilities, and develop their creativity. Programs like Educate contribute in dealing with stereotypes and in the peaceful cohabitation of people of different religions in the same place. The main goal is to help through this process the student to reject violence through the deeper learning of his own religion, but also of other religions. Such religious education promotes the role of religion in the prevalence of peace. According to Anastasios, Archbishop of all Albania, every crime in the name of religion is a crime against the religion itself. Every form of violence in the name of religion rapes in every sense religion itself. No war is sacred, only peace is sacred. It is now our choice to ensure the reconciliation of religious heterogeneity. Those Christians that continue to doubt and insist that people from other religions are dangerous, and consider them enemies should be reminded of the words of Jesus Christ that reconciliation and peace is the mission of Christians. Thank you. I don't know if you have any questions. I try to link theology and modern religious education. And some techniques come from the new curricula who have worked here with Professor Vasiliki Mitropoulou. And students will work in this curricula in 2023. We use a lot of educational drama, artful thinking, creative questions, and all we are in a role, and the main important thing is to reflect at the end, students to think what we have done. Is this useful for my life, for my personal life? Okay, please loud, because after COVID I have a problem with my ears. Okay.
Thank you, because only one mic is working at the time. So thank you for the presentation. It was very interesting. And I'm asking about the age of the students. So how old were the students you were participating this program?
Students are 12 until 17 years old. But we transform the educational material. You have students 17 years. We use photos like this. It's more aphoretic photos. But if we have children at 12 or 13 years, we use this painting on your right. Because we want to create a lesson that students can understand. And all this, it has to do with the experiential learning. We don't want the dogma to be something in their mind, but in their life. Like lifestyle, not exactly the same. Okay, I don't know.
Other questions? We have to thank our colleague, Mr. Nikos Tsirevelos. And with this lecture, we finish our walk for this day, because afternoon, I remind you that we have a visit to the Evangelical Church of Thessaloniki at 5:30. Yes, not 5:30. Okay, it's maybe it will be easier for us, to Yes, in front of the hotel, because the building here is locked. That's why I went down to unlock for a worker here. So now it's time for lunch. There is the possibility to go to the tavern. We went yesterday with the same prices, or you are free to choose your own tavern or restaurant. So our appointment, is there any question? Ποια εκκλησία? Είπαμε έξω από το ΑΜΠΕΣΕ. Ναι, 5:15, okay, 5:15. 5:15, because we have to walk. It's not so far, but it takes, yes. Is it okay? Thank you very much. Yes.
Evangelical church, because we live in another hotel.
Yes, yes, you're right. Yes. Well, evangelical is Ernatia, it's the main road, and here is Paleon Patron Germano. You turn right. At the right hand, you will see the building. It's very easy to find.
You will come from here.
From yes, yes, it's very. Here is the hotel. So
We will be here at
5:30.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.